Hi, Dustin Bomas, Director of Sales and Partnerships here at CoVideo. It's great to meet you here, Lauren, on today's call.
Nice to meet you too, Dustin. I am Lauren with iPacket, and I am a sales director here where I get to help introduce dealerships to iPacket and what kind of value we can bring them.
Perfect. And today, I think our topic of discussion is trust, how that impacts automotive specifically, how we can leverage the benefits of providing and gaining trust at the dealership level, and how our tools can assist in helping achieve some of those exchanges of trust.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, iPacket is really, and Covideo as well, from what I know, really centered around bringing that conversation of trust and value to a customer buying a car. We do so through our digital vehicle presentations that are truly designed to engage that buyer in a way that they're not used to, a way that is a little bit untraditional than what they expect. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about that today.
Awesome. And I'd like to start first with just kind of like looking at especially how things have changed over the last few years, but just in general, as more and more technology becomes available, and we become incredibly efficient, but we're kind of reaching out to a broader, wider, farther audience, right? So we lose some of that effectiveness as time goes on, and eventually things start to kind of rebalance, right? We add a little more humanity back to the technology, and we create more back and forth and exchange of ideas and information. What would you say the biggest impact that you've seen on technology in the last couple of years as it relates to how dealerships or sales professionals in general are trying to earn back some of that humanity and some of that exchange of trust?
Yeah, I think that it's been a little bit of them having to create a bridge of the customer having a lot of tools at their hand, and they're able to really do a lot of their research before they even talk to a salesperson. So, figuring out how to have a conversation with their customer that credits them for the eagerness and the hungriness that they have, to find the information before they even contact a dealer, but also kind of breaking down those barriers of, they're doing a lot of that research before they reach out to a dealership or a salesperson because they want to come in educated. So making sure that you value that perspective that they come into that conversation with, but like you said, bringing a little bit of humanity and still giving them that feel of hey, I want to buy from this dealership because of my experience with them and how they interact with me once I've reached out to them.
Makes sense. I love what you hit on there because it's almost like in order to gain trust, you have to give a little, right? You got to trust the customer and allow them to kind of create their own journey, so to speak, provide them the resources. It's interesting. I was looking up over the last few weeks for some other engagements that I've been doing, a lot of research on how the tail end of millennials and now Gen Z, as they're turning 26 this year, how their learning and online kind of decision-making process is being guided. And what I've learned is that ultimately they want to do a lot of self-teaching. There's so many new entrepreneurs that are millennials and Gen Z who have said, hey, I find this topic very interesting. I'm going to go out and I'm going to teach myself how to do that just with the available resources online and YouTube, searching how-tos and educational videos. There's so many topics that are at our fingertips now. And if they're doing that as a cultural change just in how they learn in their day to day and the topics they're interested in, how does that affect business? And when I looked, Gen Z in particular is incredibly interested in the infotainment sector of their purchase decision, right? Watching their influencers go on shopping sprees, so to speak, and joining them in that shopping expedition, or watching them talk about products, whether it's unboxing or reviews, or maybe it's a product that they offer that they're explaining. But Gen Z highly prefers to see and touch and feel that information. And right now they're looking to sources they trust, right? Trust because there's some kind of commonality there, some humanity between some of these influencers and online personalities. But a dealership can do that too, can they not?
Oh, absolutely. We always say that you've got to give them good if you want great. You can't expect for them to just come in and tell you exactly what they want. You've got to give them information that makes them feel comfortable. Just like you're saying, they see somebody online, like an influencer that they trust for other reasons talk about buying a car. Well, then they think, well, that's exactly how I want to buy a car too, because they trust that audience, and that influencer has given them good over the time period that they follow them. And so they're willing to give them great by saying, hey, that's exactly how I'm going to go do that. And we think that that really is a big pivotal part about iPacket, and why iPacket really resonates with the customer as much as it does the dealership, because you're giving them information that makes them feel comfortable. They feel more educated, they feel more informed, and makes that decision making process just that much better.
Absolutely. Seeing is believing, and hearing from third-party sources, regardless of how it's presented to them, it allows you to see it through another lens, right? And I think iPacket does that incredibly well. You don't have to, even though iPacket and we trust the dealer, you guys might be strangers, right? So, hey, we're showing you this information. The dealership's providing this information. You don't have to just take it on the dealership's word, right? And that helps kind of overcome some of the stories that some true, some glorified, some Hollywood, right? That have painted our industry in a certain light. And so allowing them that transparency and that trust aspect, trusting in them to see the information and make a good decision and continue a conversation, I think is truly powerful, something that iPacket does very, very well, and enabling and entrusting the customer to have a conversation back and forth with the dealership.
Well, and that's why I love, co-video and iPacket being meshed together as a 1-2 punch, because with co-video, you get to see your salesperson, especially COVID. But even now, I think even myself, my friends, we aren't always ready, jumping at the chance to get into a car dealership physically to talk to somebody. So being able to take the aspect of seeing my salesperson or seeing the car and combining it with the information, all then makes me that more willing to show up somewhere and take that test drive. I know, even not buying a car, I want to do all the research before I take the time to go do that task. We're much more home oriented, I think, as a society now, definitely a generation. So that, I think with co-video and iPacket, when they're together and you get to touch and you see your salesperson and you feel and read the information on the car you're looking at, you say, wow, what an experience that is as a customer, versus just getting, bombarded with phone calls like all the other dealerships.
Absolutely. And when we take that, the fact that purchase decisions are two-part, right? It's facts and feelings. And we know that feeling is a huge aspect to that, right? That's why like and trust are typically ranked higher than the actual, here's just the facts, right? Here's the statistics and what this one does and what this one doesn't do, et cetera. It's the overall experience, how that makes them feel. And so when you're enabling them with the information, all the facts, but presenting it in a way that is very tangible and inspires emotion, the way that iPacket does, when they could see it and they can play with it and enjoy the information. And then you add that humanity aspect, right? Where you're making eye contact with that customer that maybe you would never be able to even shake hands with potentially, but you're still getting that face time. And in our culture, trust is developed through a lot of things, but primarily we trust someone if they can look you in the eyes, right, and say something. So if you could see it, you could believe it. If you're making eye contact with the person that is actually presenting that and sharing that information with you, then you're capitalizing on all of the points, feelings, facts, which leads to trust and transparency, which leads to that buying decision. I was looking at, again, the Gen Z and the millennial aspect of it, because, it spans like 15 years per generation, right? And the tail end of millennials really, really grew up and basically created the culture that is YouTube. And then Gen Z grew up with YouTube and Instagram already in full swing, right? And at their fingertips and instant information. And it really was interesting to watch the impacts of facts and feelings as to loyalty to brands. Yeah. So if you look at Gen X and the baby boomers, they had about a 60% just generational loyalty to their favorite brand. And then we moved into millennials, and that moved down to 50%. We're in Gen Z now, which is turning 26, and is going to be an incredibly competitive market to go after. Their brand loyalty is it 30%? They don't just make a knee jerk, hey, I'm on this team, I'm going with this brand, right? It is as low as it's ever been on a generation. So we got to kind of keep that game up, so to speak. We can't just say, all right, we got to win them once and then let it go. We have to keep the content, the quality, the engagement, the interaction going strong with this generation.
I absolutely agree. And I think you hit on a point there, the loyalty aspect, and how once that trust is established, you're willing to tell anyone about it, and share your experience, and really, almost brag that I had a good experience here and it was what I was looking for. I even think about, I have a neighbor buying a car and she tells me I'm willing to drive 35 more minutes because I like the guys at that dealership more. And they did something to do that. They built the value, they built the trust, that relationship with her. She's driving past the other dealership to buy that car that she could buy the one that's closer, but because of the way that they made her feel, the way that they gave an experience that was one she liked, and she's telling me about it, right? So then where am I going to go? I'm going to go to the guys a little bit further away because I hear that there's a better experience there. I mean, and it almost breaks it down to like a micro influencer level there, where you're telling your friends when it's a great experience, and building that is how you change the perspective of car buying and what people experience when they do so, at a micro level.
Absolutely. I love that. And there's a lot to be said with the aspect that when you trust and like something or an experience per se, let's just call it the experience, because any dealership can do this and they don't have to be loyal to their brand, but they do show loyalty to their experience, right? The experiences that they're having. And customers across the generations will spend about 140% more on experiences that they enjoyed. They will tell an average of 9 people about customer experiences that they enjoyed. Now, on the flip side of that, right, if we don't provide that great experience, which maybe it's just, in comparison to another experience, but people will tell an average of 16 people about a bad experience. And they're more likely, about 70% more likely, just to leave the brand and never look back, right? So providing this experience isn't just about getting the sale. It's about making sure that they're talking positively about you for 9 people versus negatively about you with 14 people. That's what the experience does to trust. And you don't refer someone to your family. I'm not going to tell my mom to buy somewhere if I don't trust them. And that's what this is all about.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think it almost, when you do have that experience, it raises the bar of your expectations, the standard at which you think that buying a car, for example, would go, and how that happens is now up here where, you kind of went into it thinking, wow, I'm not really looking forward to this. And you have that amazing experience. Not only do you tell people about it, but that becomes the standard. And we even have it, in some areas of the country where iPacket, there are a bunch of iPacket dealers and got a little bit more saturation. It becomes the expectation. They go to the next dealer and they want that same level of transparency, that same level of experiencing, trust from the get-go with the dealer, because they're giving everything out to them, right away.
Absolutely. Man, I wish I had this with my roofing business back in the day. If I could send an iPacket about the value, history, and information that they're getting with their roof, it would have taken my co-video game to the next level. There's a really, really great kind of knowledge that I have now from my personal vehicle purchasing experience, where I had to go to 6 or 7 different sources to piecemeal all the information together, because everywhere I went, even if it was the same vehicle, was kind of incomplete information here, incomplete information there. I had to go and beg this dealer for that bit of information, this dealer for that bit of information. But the nice thing about iPacket is it put it all together for me. And to be that dealer that provides that value could have saved me so much time and heartache and stress of trying to not be over obligated by just starting a conversation, just trying to info gather. So I wish the dealers that I was touching back in the day had iPacket at that time, because it was hard to piecemeal all that information together to feel confident in my own decision making capabilities back then when I was buying some of my first vehicles.
Yeah, I think we hear that a lot, that when the customer does reach out, they are so much further along in the decision-making process because they had everything they needed. But without everything that they need, or they don't even know what they need, that journey is a lot longer. It's a lot, in their mind, maybe more painstaking. And with it, moving them, and this is a fast society these days, and having that ability to move them along faster, it really makes the experience overall much better for that dealer.
Absolutely. And then if they would have taken it a step further and actually gone out and shown me the vehicle, shown that it was actually there on the lot and available in the condition that it's in, would have been just even better for my buying experience. I ended up begrudgingly going in at some point, and then they fought me for 5 hours at the dealership as I was trying to learn at the dealership, but learning from someone who I hadn't yet had any trust with. So it just would have been interesting to go back in time as a first-time car buyer to know if they had equipped me with the information, I could learn from it, engage with it, and then see the vehicle and get that gesture from them. I feel like I would have lost less years of my life with the stress of that decision and going in and kind of getting worn down, which is kind of the typical experience a lot of people might hear passed down from the generations, right? You're going to go in, they're going to beat you up. So, and don't leave there without a deal, right? Negotiate. That's not really the world we live in now. With the transparency, the price is really set by the market now, but there's still that desire, that need to feel like you got a deal, or you beat them because they were trying to pull one over on you. Now the information's there at our fingertips and you could see it and touch it.
And I think too, what you said about being able to see the vehicle itself, giving you that virtual experience, we're okay with it, of it being virtual. I think the buyer these days is much more comfortable with it as long as they can see it, and they will be willing to drive far. I think that back, 20 years ago, people would just look within a certain radius of where they lived for a vehicle. And, being able to use something like co-video to reach a audience that is a little further away, I think becomes extremely crucial to making those kind of deals happen for a dealership.
Well, thank you so much for your time and expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the conversation, Dustin, and I look forward to, continuing bringing that trust through co-video and iPacket to dealers, all around the world.